So, we're going to talk about a nuclear power plant in Iran getting attacked. But honestly, that's not even the main story. The real story, the one that kind of rewrites the rulebook for everyone, isn't about the attack itself. It's about Russia's response, which was, to put it mildly, baffling.
Okay, so let's just jump right into the big mystery here. You've got Russia, right? A nuclear superpower. They build and they operate Iran's only nuclear power plant. So you'd think when that plant gets bombed over and over, Russia's response would be, I don't know, a show of force? Maybe a threat or two? Nope. Instead, they quietly ask the attackers, the ones doing the bombing, for a timeout, just so they can get their own people out safely. I mean, how on earth did we get to this point?
All right, so to even begin to understand Russia's weird reaction, you really have to grasp just how bad things got at the Bushehr plant. This wasn't just a minor incident. We're talking about a slow-motion disaster just waiting to happen. And listen, that quote isn't coming from some politician looking for a headline. That's Rafael Grossi. He's the head of the IAE, the planet's nuclear watchdog. This guy does not use language like that unless things are serious. And you're about to see exactly why he was so worried when you look at this timeline.
See, this wasn't some one-off random attack. No way. This was a deliberate, escalating campaign. We're talking 5 different strikes in just over a month. And each one got a little bit bolder, a little more dangerous. They went from landing nearby to hitting critical stuff right inside the perimeter fence.
And this table really spells out just how close they were cutting it. The strikes weren't just, hitting random buildings. They were inching closer and closer to the heart of the whole facility, the reactor itself. And that last attack, it killed a security guard just 350 meters from the reactor dome. We are literally talking about a game of inches here.
Okay, so now let's get to Russia's reaction. Because this is where the story goes from alarming to just plain bizarre. You have a global power, right? Their multi-billion-dollar project is under direct attack, and their big move is, what exactly?
So instead of scrambling jets or deploying air defense systems, Russia's state-owned nuclear company, Rosatom, just organizes a bus convoy. And then, get this, they use back channels to basically ask the attackers to pretty please hold their fire for a bit so their staff can escape. It's just unbelievable.
I mean, this quote from Rosatom's CEO is just jaw-dropping. He's in the middle of a crisis at his company's reactor, and he goes public saying they're totally in the dark, that the Iranians won't even answer their calls. That's not how you manage a crisis. That is a full-on public surrender. It's a retreat, plain and simple.
And you can literally watch Russia's whole tough guy stance just crumble in their press releases. First, they come out strong, condemning the attacks as reckless. Then, as the bombs keep falling, they just start talking about how risky it all is. And the final step? They give up. They don't just abandon the plant, they abandon their whole role as its protector. They just pack up and leave.
Now, you can bet Iran's foreign minister jumped all over this. He pointed out what he called a massive double standard. Remember all the drama when there was fighting near the Zaporizhzhia plant in Ukraine? The UN Security Council, endless meetings, the whole world was watching. But here, with direct, deadly attacks on the Bushehr reactor, basically crickets from the international community.
Okay, here's why this gets even more complicated. This whole mess isn't just an Iran-Russia problem. Not at all. For the Arab states right across the Gulf, a meltdown at Bushehr isn't some far-off issue. It's an existential threat, a potential checkmate to their very survival.
Just think about it for a second. How do these super-wealthy Gulf nations survive in the desert? With these gigantic desalination plants that turn seawater into fresh water. It's an absolute marvel of engineering. But it's also their Achilles heel, because nearly all of their drinking water comes from the exact same sea that the Bushehr plant is built on. They are, quite literally, downstream from a ticking time bomb.
And here's the real kicker, the fatal flaw in this whole setup. If that reactor leaks, the big problem is a radioactive isotope called cesium-137. And guess what? Those incredible multi-billion-dollar desalination plants, they can't filter it out. It's just not what they were designed to do. So the source water itself, the entire Persian Gulf, could become poisonous.
And we're not just guessing here. Scientists have run the models. They've mapped the currents in the Gulf, and it would take just 15 days for a radioactive cloud in the water to travel from Bushehr and get sucked right into the water supply for places like Kuwait, Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia. 15 days, that's it.
So now, Iran is playing this card for all it's worth. They're openly using this as leverage, reminding their Gulf neighbors, hey, a disaster at our plant, that's going to be a much bigger problem for your capital cities, your water supply. Suddenly, the map itself has become a weapon.
So when you step back and look at the whole picture, this one crisis in Iran is making everyone, everywhere, question the basic rules we thought we had about civilian nuclear power.
You know, for like 50 years, global nuclear safety has been based on a few core beliefs. You know, like you don't attack civilian reactors, the country that sells you the plant has your back, and these things aren't military targets. Well, the Bushehr crisis and Russia's reaction just took a sledgehammer to every single one of those ideas.
And look, this isn't just about the Middle East. This has massive global consequences. Rosatom is the world's biggest exporter of nuclear reactors. They're building plants in places like Egypt, Turkey, Bangladesh, and a huge part of their sales pitch has always been this unspoken promise. Hey, buy from us and you get the protection of a superpower. Well, after what happened to Bushehr, that promise looks completely empty.
So it all comes down to this really unsettling question, doesn't it? In a world where all the old rules seem to be breaking down, what's the actual risk of going nuclear? Because if a superpower won't even step up to defend its own reactor, its own people, its own tech, then who in the world is going to be there to defend yours?